Hey everyone, Saray here again. Today we're going to be doing one of my favorite schemes. It's actually the color for my personal army, the Badab Salamander scheme from the Rogue Trader era of Warhammer 40k. You can see there in the bottom, towards the bottom in the second row, the Salamanders in the yellow and black. That's kind of what we're going for, although the way I've modified it kind of looks like the Space Sharks down a couple from the Salamanders. I've heard this scheme described as maybe one of the ugliest in existence, and I mean, I guess you're allowed to be wrong. This is one of my favorite schemes. So while we'll be tackling this kind of wacky scheme, it's also a great excuse to teach you how I do yellow. I understand that yellow is a color that people have a lot of trouble with. But yeah, I'm going to show you how I go about it. Now, I need to upfront this by saying that this is originally started off as a variation on Goobertown, his yellow recipe, but over time I've kind of modified it to fit my own preferences. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I shouted that out beforehand. You should check out his channel. So we start off with pink primer. Now I'm sure some of you have heard pink is a great way to start yellow, and yeah, that I agree. I've also shaded it with an ink through an airbrush. This is Dollar Rowney Process Magenta, dark pink, that has quite a bit of saturation to it. Now I'm focusing it on the bottom because we're going to get a nice gradient on the side here. Next up, I'm going to grab my Liquitex Titanium White ink, and I'm just going to spray this towards the top if you're looking at it in profile. So make sure you leave some of that Tamiya pink primer showing through. That way you get a nice transition. You get those two extremes of the dark process magenta and the light white. My only real suggestion with the white is make sure you do a couple of layers. You want to make sure you're getting that white fully opaque. You don't want any of that pink showing through. That's going to be important for when we spray the yellow over top. The more white, more, I guess, opaque that white is, the more intense the yellow is going to show through. Alright, now here's my favorite part. It's so satisfying to watch. We're going to use Dollar Rowney Indian Yellow ink. Just look how intense this yellow is. It's amazing. So Indian Yellow ink is a bit more orange to it. It looks, I guess, more like a school bus, or American school bus, if you will. This is not the final step, and this is, it's a nice tone to have for most of the model, but it doesn't work great as I want to push it a little bit higher for the highlight of the yellow, which we'll do next. So yeah. So there it is. Pretty orange, very vibrant, but we are going to do a little bit extra to really push that yellow. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back to that white, that Liquitex white ink, and you're just going to choose a couple of areas. You're not going to go over all the same areas. Choose a couple focal points. So here I've chosen the front third of the tank as you're looking at it from the top. And then I'm going to be a little more strict when I'm spraying the profile. We're going to be spraying similar areas as we did with the white previously, just tighten it up a little bit. You don't want to go such broad strokes like you did before, as you can see here. Now, that's what you're looking at something like this. I've also chosen to spray the hatch a little bit. You're going to come back with Dollar Rowney Brilliant Yellow, and this is a much more, I mean, it's still a very saturated yellow, but it's not quite as orange. It'll be a little bit difficult to see that you see me adjusting my lights here, because it's so bright already, it's kind of hard to see. But you can kind of tell now, especially if you look at the top of those lights, how much, you know, I guess more yellow it is, as opposed to that orangey yellow. It just works great as a way to you know, make it look a little less flat. And there you go. It's pretty obvious there how different that yellow is. All right, so now we're going to move on to the markings, camouflage markings. So I just have right here Vallejo Game Color Black, and we're just going to freehand this. Now I have a couple of points of advice when you're doing this. When you're painting that black, you never want to end the line in the middle of a panel. You notice that all the lines basically wrap around the tank. They're always going to touch another piece of the black camouflage, and they're always going to the edge. They're never stopping in the middle of a panel. Yeah, and feel like I should mention real quick, if you haven't liked the video, please like it. If you like it, if you're enjoying it, we'd appreciate a like. Appreciate any comments as well. Yeah, so now we're going to move on to weathering. I love weathering. Weathering's one of my favorite things to do, especially on bright colors like yellow. So what I've done here is I've grabbed a Vallejo Dark Rust. You can also use chocolate brown if you prefer a bit more of a warm brown as opposed to this kind of cold dark. I've gone with this Dark Rust. So what I've done is I've sponged on the edges. Really focus on the edges, the sharp edges. Think of areas where paint is more likely to get rubbed off. And then what I do after that is I grab a brush, grab that same color, and I just basically edge highlight to connect some of those scratchy bits up. You can also do, take a little artistic liberty and add in your own scratches here. I've painted a little like speed scratch work. Maybe they hit a rock from the front and it's maybe skipped off the armor here. Micro scratches go a lot of way. That means just grabbing a tiny bit of paint on the tip of your brush and just making a little scratch here and there. You might notice that it's very glossy now. I did gloss up for this next stage where we panel line. You're going to take a panel line and you're going to go through, find all these panels and vents and stuff like that, and you're just going to fill those in. Next, I'm going to do rust streaks. So what I've got here is Winsor & Newton burnt sienna. And what I'm doing is I'm picking out a couple of areas that I think rust would build up. So areas around rivets, areas where joints meet up, points where armor joints meet up. And then what I'm doing is apply a dot, and then you grab a small brush, put a little bit of mineral spirit on it, and then just wipe down directly down in a straight line. What's great about this stuff is that if you screw it up, if you make a mark you don't like, you can just go back and put a little more mineral spirit on your brush and just wipe it away. It's like an eraser. It's really great. If you've never used if you've never used oils or enamels, I highly suggest it. They're very forgiving. You might have noticed I've already done some blacking out of the weapons here and the tracks, but for the lights and armor, what we're going to do is just black those out with that Vallejo model color black as well. Yep, just make sure you're getting these lenses blacked out. I have a light over there because this model came with a broken sight above the flamer on the right side of the tank. What I'm doing now for the tracks is I've grabbed a little bit of Scale 75 Petroleum Gray, dry brushed those, and then came in with Vallejo Dark Gray over that and dry brushed again. You can probably skip the first step, the Petroleum Gray. It's very subtle. You could just jump straight into the dark gray if you want to save some time. After that, I'm going to grab Vallejo French Mirage Blue and basically do that same style of weathering with a sponge, where you sponge up the edges, and then you go back and you connect those random marks with a brush and basically edge highlight to define those edges a little more. So soon after this, we're going to do some oil washes. So if you want to gloss again, you can. It's not 100% necessary though. Also take this moment to say, we do stream. If you're interested in watching some of our live shows, we stream all the time. So I suggest you come check us out if you're enjoying this kind of stuff. On Mondays, we have our 40K and AOS talk shows. On Wednesdays and Sundays, that's when we have our hobby shows. And Fridays are also a hobby show, but those are for members only. So if you want to see those, become a member. So for the lenses, they've already been blacked out. What we're going to do now is grab Vallejo Game Color, Gory Red. You're going to draw a small crescent in the bottom right there. We have some viewports here as well in this hatch, and I'm doing the same thing. It's just a slightly different shape. They're not circular; they're squares, right? And then with that, you grab your Vallejo Game Color Bloody Red, and within that previous crescent, you draw a smaller crescent. There you go. You can see. Just quickly for these lights with the cages around them, it's the same reds, Gory Red, highlight Bloody Red, and then we cover it with Citadel Nuln Oil or any black wash that you prefer. And then you go back and blacken those cages. The final steps for the lenses are we go in with AK deep orange, and just within that previous crescent of bloody red, we draw a smaller crescent of deep orange. Finally, you grab your preferred white paint. I grabbed the Liquitex ink I was already using and just put 2 white dots opposite the crescent in the top left corner. And now we're doing the wash I'd mentioned earlier. This is the same burnt sienna we used earlier for those rust streaks. It's fairly thinned down, and you should apply it all over the black areas like the flamers, the melta on top, and any other areas that you left black. For the metallics, I use Vallejo Metal Color Exhaust Manifold. This stuff is real runny, but it looks great. So if you're using it, just let it sit in your dry palette for a couple seconds. You probably don't even want to bother putting it on your wet palette. Now you can do this next step with a brush. I did it with an airbrush just because I was able to, but totally not necessary. Grab Druchii Violet and cover the front, let's say half of that flamer. And then the front third of the flamer, you're going to apply some Drakenhof Nightshade. Now you can, if you want to, you can bring this up to a third step. I didn't bother. You can add a tiny bit of black on the very tips, but I kind of like the way it looked with just the purple and blue. All right, the final things you're going to do is you're going to apply your varnishes. I love my varnishes. I went with an ultra matte, whatever your preference is. I think mattes generally work a little bit better. You will lose a little bit of the vibrancy of the yellow, but I think it makes it, I don't know, I guess it just reads better. The camouflage reads a little better when it's all matte. And yes, I am aware that I'm varnishing over metallics. You don't have to do that. I did it in this case because matte varnishing over those metallics makes the metallics look more weathered and beaten. This step is also optional. My salamander army is based on Martian red bases, and so I add a little bit of Vallejo Pigments Dark Red Ochre into the tracks. I don't apply it over the entire track. I just choose a couple areas and just use a brush and work them in. And once we're done with that, we're going to call it done. That should leave you with something like this. All right, that's it. That's our Badab Rogue Trader Salamander scheme done. I'm quite happy with how it came out. If anyone has any questions or comments, leave it down in the comment section, or you can hit me up on our Discord, which I'll have linked below. We're also taking requests, so if there are any tutorials you want to see, also just leave that down in the comments. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.